So chapter 6, which is the patience chapter, the verse is 37. So verse 37, if when under the influence of disturbing conceptions people will even kill their treasured selves, how can they be expected not to cause harm to the bodies of other living beings? Even if I cannot develop compassion for all such people who through the arousal of disturbing conceptions set out to try and kill me and so forth, the last thing I should do is to become angry with me. So we explain these two stanzas. If under the influence of disturbing conceptions people will even kill their treasured ones, that means they not only kill themselves, they have the courage to not only take their own life but also to take the life of their beloved ones, the close ones. If that is the case, how can they be expected not to cause harm? If that is the case, then it is very, we cannot guarantee or we cannot promise that such a person cannot bring harm to others, because even the things that that they cherish so much is, they forget and they are ready to do anything. And so this being the case, so there is no guarantee that such a people cannot bring harm to the bodies of other living beings. So so here, it is killing killing the oneself and one's treasured ones. This, in the case of this killing, I think they can be directly in the negative emotions or problematic emotions are directly involved, directly involved. And but then in some cases, also, disturbing conceptions, disturbing conception is not necessarily involved, involved, but some kind of disturbing, some kind of depression also involves, some kind of depression also involves. But when we try to analyze, when we try to search what give rise to these disturbing emotions, which led them to take drastic step, and then it is finally lies in disturbing emotions, and particularly those kind of self-grasping. I think self-cherishing is a little to do with these things. Unfortunately, the main thing is self-grasping, because self-cherishing comes when there is self-grasping. Self-grasping gives rise to self-cherishing, and so people even kill their treasured selves. How can they be expected not to cause harm to the bodies of other living beings? And now, harming others can be in different, of different forms, such as directly, harming the bodies, and also, in the case of killing, which involves, physical kind of physical form, and then physical form. And that is harming at the physical level, and then harming the mind. How can harming the mind? Although the words are nothing, the harsh words, but harsh words is nothing, But when then motivated out of anger and hatred, when we use harsh words, then it becomes so heavy. Then it is more sharper than the sword. because it really torn apart the piece, torn apart the heart into pieces. Some people we see in many in the universities there is a cases like the teacher gives scolded to students and student unable to bear then commit suicide, like these things. So harsh words, also very the painful, like these things. Even if I cannot develop compassion for all such people through the arisal of disturbing conceptions, set out to try and kill me and so forth, the last thing I should do is to become angry with them. So when now the such so this verse, the two verses are trying to say we may wonder oh, such a people really bring a tremendous harm, a tremendous kind of harm towards other people, in the case of killing, in the case of stealing, in the case of abusing others. So we may wonder like these things. So we may wonder, but then if such a person himself or herself taking one's own life, or one's treasured ones due to disturbing conceptions, then it is nothing to surprise. It's nothing to feel amazed at, to feel surprised, because they themselves also torture themselves. So it's not surprise to see them inflicting harm on others, because they also torture, and they even take the life of themselves and others. So this verse is trying to say, trying to show or present the obligation for reducing the afflictions, and we may even then it says, for such a people it is they are worthy of compassion. They are really becomes the object of compassion, not the object of. There is no time to get angry towards these people. It's really a time to develop compassion towards them. And even if one is not able to develop compassion, at least one should refrain from developing hatred or anger towards these people, because these people they are not doing they are not harming others without any causes and conditions. They inflict they harm others because there is a reason, because the things come into being. Maybe some innocent people, without causes and conditions may harm you, act in a different way. Otherwise, those sensible people, they get angry, and then they try to cause, harm. And that harm again, as we discussed, these, things do not, these things are not easy, and these things come into being purely as a result of many conditions, and these conditions again governed by other factors, So we cannot pinpoint the exact the cause which give rise to harm, the so-called harm, the so-called that we do not want to experience suffering. So who through the arisal of disturbing conception set out to try and kill me and so forth, the last thing I should do is to become angry with them. So here, angry here, at least, we should always try to, it says, the word says, try to maintain a kind of the maintain a kind of positive state of mind even during difficult times, So here, angry, the last thing I should do is to become angry with them. Angry, I think they are angry cannot be totally, negative. They could be positive angry. They could be a positive angry, and then when it comes to hatred, then it is completely negative. There is completely negative, and because the motivation, the hatred, it's completely bring harm, bring negative action, and then I think when it comes to hatred, angry, they are different, positive angry. The anger, they could be positive angry, and then positive angry, also there are different degrees, there are different intensity. Now when it comes to the the hatred, I think very once developed hatred is a very disaster. So now it says develop, and there is no time to develop hatred towards the perpetrator or towards the one who brought you some harm, a certain degree of harm. Now here, because if you analyze the situation carefully, the perpetrator brings you harm, and then perpetrator brings you harm, and that perpetrator, after all, he or the perpetrator is a sentient being after all. Like oneself, does not want suffering and desire happiness, and desire happiness, and then he brings some brings some kind of harm or inflicts some pain, and then from the the one who is to receive the pain, and then instead of getting angry or getting hatred or towards the perpetrator, he should feel rejoice. He should in fact feel rejoice, because the perpetrator gives the opportunity, gives you the chance to purify of your own negative deeds, negative karma, and then the perpetrator himself or herself committed some negative karma, he through his own negative action created a negative karma in this life, and then as a result of which the perpetrator, he has to experience the result, negative consequences, sooner or later. So when you see these things, you should, instead of getting angry towards the perpetrator, really feel compassion for the perpetrator, and from the from the side of the one who received the pain, who received the who undergo the pain, should develop compassion and love for the perpetrator, because in terms of irrespective of his motivation, as far as the perpetrator's motivation is concerned, he is completely negative attitude towards the view. But at the same time, if we look positively, if we look from the positive aspects, then we will find that you are being given the opportunity to purify of your own negative deeds, to create a merit for yourself, Now, since you become the causes, you become the primary factor, primary causes for you become the primary causes for the perpetrator to experience pain in this life, or next life. Viewing from that angle, since you become the primary cause, will you also experience the same pain in this life or next life? Will you experience the same negative experience? Will you experience the same negative karma? No. That is, the answer is no. Because from your side, because you are practicing patience, and also you have no intention to bring something, no intention for the perpetrator to experience pain, to undergo pain, and you practice patience. So there is no kind of, so from one's own side, there's you won't experience any pain in the same way as the perpetrator do. Now from the perpetrators, now that is one thing. From another angle, the perpetrator gives you the opportunity to practice, to allows you to practice patience, to allows you to purify of your own negative deeds which you have accumulated in the in this life or in past lives. So viewing from that angle, will the perpetrator also accumulate some kind of merit? Again, no. Why? Because from the perpetrator's side, the motivation is completely negative towards you. So there is no way that he can earn merit. Although he may have given you the opportunity to practice or to purify, but then his motivation is ill motivation, the motivation to harm others. So there is no so there is no way that the perpetrator can earn or amass a merit. So like these things. Now here we are talking about patience. Now like in these cases try to practice patience. When somebody tries to harm you, when somebody belittle you, despises you, criticize you, in many of our situations, we due to our unskillful in handling the situation, we retaliate similarly. So as a result, both sides suffer. Now when somebody criticizes you, when somebody despises you, or cause you bring you some harm, now some people then very skillful in one way, in not there is a Tibetan expression that although inside is burning with fire, but then not in exhaling the smoke from the mouth. So like that. Again, this is not a form of practice, form of patience practice. Now when we talk about the practice, the purpose of the practice, the patient practice, is not to let anger and hatred develop, not to ensure not to arise the anger or hatred within oneself, because the moment it arrives, it destroys one's peace of mind. One is in the state of internal disturbance. So then one people he was and also some people then take the patience the understanding of patience in a different way. Some people, for example, one is practicing patience, and then due to your this practice, there could be possible that some may take advantage of your practice. So in which case, what to do? So some people, again, for example, we say one we cannot say when we just meditating like in a cross leg position, like meditating, I'm meditating on the patience, and then even if the dogs, mad dog, tigers, lion, snake comes, you cannot let it bite, you cannot let it harm, because you cannot say I'm practicing patience. This is a foolish way of presentation of practice. So in such a case, better to run. Better to run, because when we talk about so the practice, as we discussed before, is not to arise, to ensure not to arise the the anger or hatred within oneself. So again, like in Tibet, there is one guy meditating, and meditating somewhere, and then another man came. Master, what are you doing? Yeah, I'm just practicing patience. And then another man, then after some time, another man, after a while, another man came and then inquired about his, actually, about his a form of meditation practice. And then again he responded, in a similar way. And then third time, another man came, and then asked him, what are you doing? And then in which case you eat shit. And then this master lost self-control, lost self-temper, and in which case you eat shit too. So like this. Patience does not mean meditating on some in a cross-leg position, like not in this way. Especially like those kind of positive emotions, positive qualities of the mind. Of course, this it is very advisable to meditate, meditate in a formal, meditate in a formal way. But then the purpose of this, developing positive qualities of mind and reducing or minimizing one's destructive emotions or problematic emotions, is to when confronted or when encountered with difficult situations. And then what happens in many of the cases, including myself, when confronted with difficult situations, now we have no courage to face it. We then escape from it. We are trying to run away from it instead of facing it boldly. Because actually the very purpose of meditation, the purpose of meditation is just, why do we charge battery? Charging the battery is to run. run something electronic things. Why do we charge some electronic things? To make it work. So it's like in the case of meditation, we do some kind of meditation, but when the difficult situation arises, which really demands your practice, which really demands your the courage, inspiration, then we really lack in these things, and then trying to get away from it rather than facing it. So these are Shantideva's many of the verses are all about facing during the difficult situations or during difficult circumstances. Under difficult circumstances, how we should face it. And then some people, although they do face although they really go through suffering, but then there is one quality of suffering. Without suffering, there is no spiritual growth. When there is suffering, there is spiritual growth, because he or she becomes experienced in suffering. The more experienced suffering, the more there is inner strength. But the more there is inner strength, there is a way. So this why one can really those wise and sensible people do when they are confronted with difficult situations, when going through difficult times, and then so they use this as an opportunity to transform them into the spiritual path, to transform them as as a conditions, as a factors for leading them to a more kind of for leading them to a more experienced level. When there is more experienced, then things go smoothly. We reject it one after the another. We rejected the problems or suffering one after the another, and then it will continue. It will continue to happen. It will continue to occur. If we are skillful, then we can make it to cease. But since we are not, if one is not skillful, then it will come again and again, again and again. When it comes again and again, then one will finally get tired, and then tiredness gives rise to many again, unbearable problem. That's why in many of the meditation, its emphasis is more on accepting the suffering, accepting the challenges, rather than rejecting it. So this, from one angle, it really makes a great sense. It really makes a great sense. For these are all means for transforming and making the better. Way to lead a better way of leading a life, and set out to try and kill me and so forth. The last thing I should do is to become angry with them. So these two verses, almost Shanti, the author is trying to tell these verses not on the basis of whether educated or whether uneducated, whether rich or whether poor, or whether kind of monastics or lay person, whether higher position or lower position. He is trying to tell it at the level of the fundamental level, that we as a human being, we as a human being, and sentient beings in general, and human beings in particular. Because when it comes to feeling, when it comes to discrimination, and then when it comes to emotions, we all sentient beings, or we all kind of human beings, share the similar feeling. You want happiness, I want happiness. Just as I do not want suffering, you also do not want suffering. So this is fundamental level. There is no kind of difference. even this, this small insects, very feeble and weak scent, insects, they also aspire the same, feeling. And also many of the 30 minutes go. No. I see. And also you see many of the problems, crisis that we face today in this world is due to secondary levels, due to the secondary, too much emphasis on secondary levels. And then I'm West, you are East, you are from East, I'm from West, you are Christian, I'm Islamic, and I'm Buddhist, I'm Jewish, I'm Hindus. Too much emphasis. And then, I'm high-ranking military officers, you are just ordinary beings, ordinary people. Instead of bringing the conditions closer, we are dividing the conditions. So that's why this comes. Because in this there are 7 billion people and 1 billion people are non-religious. They do not follow religion. They declare as non-believers, and they do not want happiness. They do not want suffering. They want happiness. So how can they achieve happiness and overcome suffering or shun suffering? Material values, of course, can solve some problems to some extent at physical level, but then when it comes to mental problem, what is the answer? When it comes to mental problem, they do not believe anything. For example, in the case of the Creator, we believe, our suffering and all this are created by God to make us better person. And then in the case of believing believer, they say it's my own karma. I have done something wrong in the past life. Did something wrong in my early part of life, and now it's something that evident that I face, I experience now. We can use this kind of. We can rely on believing these things. But in the case of those who do not, follow, non-believer, in the case of non-believers, if some problem arises, what happens? Because one religion cannot satisfy the 7 billion people. Buddhism, Christianity cannot satisfy 7 billion people. Hindu cannot satisfy 7 billion people, and Buddhism also cannot satisfy 7 billion people. Now, still there is 1 billion people want happiness and do not want suffering. So how can they aspire? How can they work for to attain to achieve some kind of to address the challenges in terms of those challenges relating only at relating to mental level. So here comes. So here, Master Order himself is not. He is Order himself is a great psychologist. He is not talking these things from the some kind of religious point of view. He is rather talking from the reality level, and the reality is secular ethics, love, compassion, and those side of justice and patience, and then a lot of good teachings, a lot of other kind of wonderful kind of teachings. So secular ethics. So it is only through the secular way that they can find answer. They find answer. So that's why secular way is the best way to in general it's for the individual depends on individual whether what religion or what faith they follow is up to the individual. But then when it comes to the in general, because if our present world is that of paradise, a kind of whole people are full of love, kind of full of compassionate, and then of course there is no promotion of secular ethics. But then what happens? The world is advancing, science and technology rapidly advances and going into a new era, and then people living in this world are attracted, impressed by the science and technology, because it's a press button. When you press button, you will get on right at your hand, right in your hand. So they are impressed, because many of our physical suffering are solved by science, by the power of the science and technology, and so we take refuge in science and technology. For example, moon in early centuries, people go for refuge. People consider the moon as some kind of the god, because moon give us shelter. But now in 20th century, people invaded moon. They set the moon. They set a foot on the moon. Now this belief no more. Still, in some cases, this belief still exists today. But in general speaking, the belief that moon as a god is not powerful. So people place too much emphasis on material values, and then what happens? Material values. Of course, if it gives some problem, if it really satisfies mental health, then of course it's okay. But then, as far as physical physical problems are concerned, mental comfort really helps in dispelling, in shunning the physical problem. But that is mental health is a psychological problem. Mental health means psychological problem. So it is the psychological. So psychological problem, since mental problems are psychological problems, the antidote should also come from within. There is no press button kind of solution, press button solution to mind. When it comes to mental problems, there is no press button solutions. Everything can be trained. Everything can be trained, and that in order to train. One has to develop conviction. Based on conviction, then there's everything works as one expected. So now still few more. Okay. So with this, I finish explaining about these two stanzas, 37 and 38. Okay, thank you.